Welcome to The Planted and the Poured, a space for real conversations about life as it is while we're becoming who we were created to be. Can I ask you a question? What is taking up space in your life that no longer belongs there? Not just in your house, but in your heart, your mind, your calendar, or even the way you see yourself. So, I was gifted a gently used t shirt printing machine, which was super exciting. I previously have been using my Cricut, which is this cutting machine that cuts out heat transfer vinyl that you can then iron onto a shirt and make various designs, but it has to cut out each individual color and then you have to layer them onto the shirt. So the designs that you can make, unless you want to take a lot of time and you have a lot of patience, they can't be super complicated. So this t-shirt printing machine was given to me by a friend who wasn't really using it, and it will allow me to print the design and then just press it onto the shirt and save me about 1,000 different steps. So this was really exciting for me. I just have to do a repair and then I will be able to use it. And so I bring it into my office/craft room and I'm so excited, imagining all the things that I can make. And there's really nowhere to put it in this craft room. So this room has a desk that my brother made by hand for me because he has hands of gold. And it is the space where I taught over Zoom during COVID. I've made things for my wedding and a variety of crafts and art projects. It truly is my happy place, but sometimes it can also be the place where unfinished projects go to die. It also tends to be when I just need to get things out of my way. This is the place where I kind of plop them, and then it gets a little chaotic. And I tell myself it's because it's my creative room and I'm the messy artist, but really it can get very cluttered. So, standing in this room with this brand new opportunity on my hands, I realized that the problem wasn't that I needed more stuff, it was that I needed to make more room for what I already have. And so, this isn't just about craft rooms. I think we do this all over our lives. We hold on to things in our life because maybe we've spent a lot of money on them, or they remind us of a season, or we are afraid that we'll need it someday, or we will somehow regret letting it go, or they've just become familiar. And sometimes we don't even realize how full we've become until something new shows up. So, when you are cleaning out your closet, maybe you've heard of Marie Kondo. She's got a show on Netflix. She wrote at least one book that I am aware of, and she's kind of this decluttering, tidying up genius. And so I read her book, and it really inspired me to clean out my closet and take it really seriously. And so she's famous for asking this one simple question. When you are cleaning out a space, you are to hold each individual object in your hands and ask yourself, does this bring me joy? And I love that question, and it has been very useful when I've cleaned out various spaces in my home because if you don't immediately say yes, if you hesitate, if you have any second thoughts, the answer is no. There's a saying, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And so you have to get rid of the item, whether you toss it, whether you donate it, it's not serving you anymore. And in her culture, you thank the item for serving you in the season that it did, and you let it go. And I love this question. It's been very helpful. But I don't think it's the only question, especially with certain things. My vacuum does not bring me joy, but it's something that I need. So maybe, in addition to that question, we can also ask, does this still have a purpose? Is this helping me become who I was created to be? Am I keeping this thing because it's meaningful or because it's comfortable? Am I making this decision from faith or from fear? And the more I sit with these questions, the more I realize that we're not just talking about craft rooms and closets anymore. And I started noticing all the different ways that clutter can show up in our lives. And sometimes it's obvious, the pile of boxes in the garage, the overflowing closet that you can't walk in anymore. But sometimes it's much quieter. It could be a commitment that we keep saying yes to because we always have, but we really don't want to anymore. It's a thought we've carried for so long that we don't even question if it's true anymore. It could be a relationship that's taking more from us than it's giving. It could be an expectation that we never chose, but somehow started living by. And I think that's what really matters, because not all clutter is physically living in our home. Some of it lives in our minds, some of it exists in our calendars, and some of it lives in our hearts. And if we never stop asking what is taking up space, we'll keep wondering why we have no room for what comes next. And so, thinking about it this way, there are a few places that clutter tends to hide, and maybe you'll recognize yourself in one or more of these. So, there's the obvious one, the physical clutter. This is the stuff you can see. This is the closet you avoid opening. The craft supplies you swore you were going to use someday. Most of us have some version of this, not because we're messy people, but because life moves fast and we just accumulate things over time. So, something that I'm asking myself as I'm decluttering this space is, what am I keeping that I no longer use? And what am I holding on to just in case? And let's be real, there have been times that I have gotten rid of things and then I've needed them later. And I'll think to myself, if I had only kept that. But honestly, most of it's stuff that I could just get at the dollar store. And I would say a majority of it I haven't needed since. So, a way to help with this, even 10 minutes in one small space can really shift how you feel in your own home. And so I'm trying to be more mindful, not always successful, but I'm trying to be more mindful of, can I take 10 minutes to make this space feel a little less chaotic? Because I've noticed that when my space feels less crowded, my mind also feels less crowded. Speaking of which, there's mental clutter. And honestly, I think this can be a lot more challenging than the physical stuff. It's the thoughts you replay on a loop, conversations you keep reworking in your head, decisions you overthink long after they're already done. And so, what I'm working on for this is, what am I carrying in my mind that I don't actually need to carry anymore? What things am I worrying about that are not really my business to worry about? What thoughts do I keep repeating that I never actually stop to question? So sometimes writing this down and doing like a brain dump gets this out of your head. Sometimes I can even record my thoughts on a voice note and then just delete it, and I've gotten it out of my head and I can let it go. If we're thinking about emotional clutter, this one can be harder to name because it doesn't necessarily sit in a box. You carry it. Resentment, disappointment, things that happen that never really got resolved, but never really left either. So, some things that might help for you to ask yourself, what am I still carrying emotionally that I haven't processed? Is there something that I need to release, or at least acknowledge that it's there? If you are resentful because you have taken on more responsibilities than you asked for, is it possible that you could tell somebody about it? Maybe you have a partner or somebody else that you could say, hey, I need to let this go. I need you to take this from me because I've kind of claimed it as mine and I never really wanted it. Sometimes the first step isn't even letting it go. It's just being honest that it's there. And there's calendar clutter. And this can be very sneaky because it looks like saying yes when you meant no. And I'm very guilty of this. It looks like being busy, but not always being present. And sometimes it could be filling space just so you don't have to sit in the silence. Because we as a society have become uncomfortable with stillness and silence. So, some things we can ask ourselves: what in my schedule is draining me more than it's giving me? What am I doing out of obligation instead of something that I actually really want to do? And so, maybe we can work on turning one yes into a no this week. And then there's identity clutter. And this sometimes can be the hardest one to see because it's in how you see yourself. So old labels, old expectations, old versions of who you were that you've quietly just kept living from. So we can ask ourselves, am I still trying to be someone that I've already outgrown? And sometimes this manifests, and you can see it more clearly when you spend time with people you don't see on a daily basis or on a semi-regular basis. So maybe you have moved far away from where you grew up. And then when you go back for holidays and you see extended family that you don't normally see, you find yourself reverting to older versions of yourself or older roles that you used to play that don't really fit you anymore. What parts of my identity feel heavy instead of giving me life? And how can I let go of these things? And again, sometimes growth looks like not introducing yourself by an older version of who you used to be. Now, I want to pause here because I know this conversation can start to feel unrealistic if we're not careful. Like the answer is just let it go, clear it out, make space, move on. But that's not always how life works because not everything in our lives is something that we can just remove. You can't just throw away grief. You can't always walk away from a difficult relationship. You can't erase responsibility and you can't undo parts of your story. And so what do you do when you can't just let it go? We're not all Elsa over here. And so maybe it's not always about removing something, but maybe sometimes it's about changing what that thing gets to take from you. So, a hard relationship might still exist that you can't get out of for whatever reason it is, whether it's with a partner or family. I recognize that. So, maybe it still exists, but it doesn't get full access to your peace. Maybe we set some boundaries with that person in your life, whoever it is. Maybe a heavy season might still be present that you can't get out of right now, but it doesn't have to define your identity. Maybe grief might still be present, but it doesn't sit alone anymore. So maybe if you've lost someone close to you, yes, we still feel that grief, but maybe we make a conscious decision to remember something happy about that person along with what's making us sad. Maybe joy gets to sit beside it too. Maybe fear might still speak, but it doesn't get to lead the conversation. Sometimes we are so afraid of letting things go and we think that we can't, and maybe we can. So there are some things we can't let go of, and there are some things that we can, but we feel like we can't because it feels really, really hard. So there is an image. If you Google Jesus teddy bear, it'll come right up. And this is a really powerful image for me, one that I try to call to mind when I'm struggling to let go of something. And so it's this little girl and she's holding a small teddy bear and she's saying, "But God, I love it." And across from her, there's Jesus, and he's got a huge teddy bear behind his back. And while life doesn't always work that neatly, I think it does reflect something that at least I know to be true in my life. That sometimes we're so focused on what we're holding on to that we can't see anything else that might be possible for us if we just open our hands. And so when we sit with all of this, something may shift for us because then it stops being about organizing our lives better and it starts being about something a little bit deeper, like what is taking up space in our life. It's not just being organized, but what is taking up that space. And sometimes we don't notice it until something forces us to. So this whole idea about the craft room came to me this weekend because, as usual, I was having a party. And when company comes over, many of us are suddenly much more motivated to clean the house and declutter our spaces. And that is true for me. And it's like sometimes I can live in chaos and kind of ignore it. But then the second I know somebody's coming over, I suddenly see everything differently. And all of these projects that I've put off for a while suddenly become vitally important because people are coming. And a lot of life works like that. Sometimes life forces us to pay attention. And it's not just when company comes over. It can be a health scare or a breakup or burnout or a moment when something just breaks us open enough that we finally stop and look around. And in those moments, we suddenly start asking better questions. What really matters? What do I need to change? What cannot be the same anymore? And I'm wondering, what if we don't wait for life to force us to get there? Sometimes, if you don't wait for the garden to get overgrown before you start paying attention, life gets a little easier. Sometimes you just have to pull the weeds. And so what if we built small interruptions in our life on purpose. My father-in-law, we always tease him because he gets on us if he feels like we're eating too fast. He's like, eating is not meant to be fast. Take your time, look around. And we always joke about that, but thinking about it in this context, there's really a lot of wisdom to that. Like, what if we start building more interruptions in our life on purpose? Moments that make us stop and notice before life has to shake us awake. There's a really great TED Talk about procrastination, and he talks about the panic monster and how that's what wakes up our consciousness from the instant gratification monkey that wants to just do what it wants in the moment. And so what if instead of waiting for the panic monster to wake us up or life to shake us up, whatever metaphor you want to use, what if we build little things in our lives to make us more present and make us more aware? So that could be inviting someone close to you into your life who helps you notice what you've stopped seeing. Maybe it's doing a monthly reset, kind of looking at your calendar at the end of every month and saying, like, what could I have taken away so that I have more space to add things that fill me up? Maybe you choose one small space each week to pay attention to. So one week it's my kitchen. Maybe another week it's the closet. Maybe every once in a while I ask myself, what am I tolerating that I don't need to tolerate anymore? And this is not because everything needs to be perfect, but it's because we deserve a life of being aware and being fulfilled. So I still haven't used the t-shirt press yet. It's in my craft room, but it is in a better spot and I have decluttered it. And now I'm in the phase where I can actually make room for it. And this is the part I keep coming back to because sometimes the thing that we're hoping for isn't missing, it's there, but we just have to create the space for it. And so maybe this is what all of this really boils down to. Not just letting things go, but making room for what's actually trying to grow in our lives, because growth doesn't always happen when we add something new. A lot of times it happens when we clear a space for what's already trying to take root. So for this week, we don't need to try to fix our whole lives because that's unrealistic and overwhelming. But maybe this week we just notice one thing, one space, one habit, or one thought pattern. And we ask ourselves gently, is this still meant to take up space in my life? And maybe if the emotional stuff is too hard, maybe we start with a physical space and we become more mindful about how that mentally makes us feel. Maybe that's enough for today. Just a little more awareness, a little more room, a little more honesty about what we're carrying and what we're really just ready to set down. Not necessarily throw out, but maybe set aside. So thank you so much for listening today. I hope this met you right where you are, and I'm truly honored to be with you as you become and as I become who we were created to be. Until next time.